You know that peace and quiet in your marriage is actually a scam, right? I'm so serious. Is it just me, or have you ever felt in your marriage where you thought that things were peaceful and quiet, that everything was good, only to ask a question or have a conversation about a particular topic, even one that you guys talked about already, only for the entire relationship to just kind of just go into a super big argument, and you're wondering, how did we get here? I thought we were okay. Yeah, me too. I used to have a lot of those in my marriage as well, and I couldn't stand it. I want to take the time out to explain how that happened, but this is only for serious couples too. This is for especially for the gentlemen. I'm passionate about working with men. I'm a men's advocate, and I love explaining. I love explaining women traits or things that women do or need to men in a way that men can understand. So if that's you and you're serious about building a legacy, this is for you. If you want a quick hack, then you don't want to watch this video. I'm a Christ-centered relationship coach, and I love helping kingdom couples develop kingdom marriages that go from striving to thriving. I want you happy. I want kingdom marriages to represent the love of Christ and the joy of the Lord. So without further ado, let's get into it. So yeah, your peaceful marriage, that when people say they want peace and quiet, that's a scam, because quiet is not always the measure of a successful relationship. Sometimes quiet is actually avoidance masked as peace, and that's how you get shocked, right? So we don't want you shocked. We want you clear. We want you to feel confident, and we want you to know exactly the pulse on your relationship, because you know your wife and you know how your marriage is going. So let's get into it today. And feel free to engage with me in the comments below. I definitely like to read the comments and talk to my peoples. You're also going to need your Bible. I'm going to go to a couple of scriptures today and talk to you a little bit about the word. So once we finish, I'm going to let you know, how do you know whether or not your marriage is in true peace, or if it's a false sense of peace. I'm also going to explain to you the things that you can stop doing and the things that you can start doing in order to have a relationship that's going to get you guys on the same page. All right. So I just have some notes right here that I'm going to be looking at and paying attention to stay on track. So how do you know if you have a relationship that's just quiet? I kind of hinted at the example where you guys can't seem to make it a week or so, or 3 to 4 months without having a big blow up. That's how you know your relationship is quiet and not peaceful. A peaceful relationship is one in which you guys are connected and there's clarity. When people are arguing or fighting a lot, it's because you're not on the same page, right? It's because there's a disconnect in something that you guys thought that you agreed upon, or there's a disconnect in meeting a need, right? So I like to talk about needs being met, because if you think about it, when you walk to the altar, when you were getting married, and you walked to the altar wherever you were and you said, I do, you didn't think that you was getting into a marriage where you were going to say, I don't or I won't all the time, to be saying it all the time or to hear it. You got married to perpetually say, I do. And the best way to say I do to someone is when you agree. It's really hard to argue. It's really hard to fight when you are in agreement. And I toggle between argue and fight because a lot of people came for me in the comments when I said, you never have to argue again. And I understand the English language semantics, right, makes a difference. And people think that when I'm saying arguing, that you guys are never going to contend or have disagreements. You'll have disagreements, but you don't have to fight, right? You can have disagreements, but you can do so in a way that's healthy. You can do so in a way where you can understand each other's side without having a tug of war trying to force your partner to do things or see things your way without compromise. So that's how you'll know you have a peaceful marriage, when you guys can talk about just about anything and you're making it years without having a fight, right? Without voices being raised, giving each other the cold shoulder, where you more than love your spouse, you like your spouse. And there are plenty of marriages like that. And people are shocked when I say that, when I talk about that, because they have neither seen it nor experienced it. But I know several marriages that go decades, decades without fighting, and they are actually happy and have a peaceful marriage, and they are good. They like each other. They're not having date nights. They're having date weekends. They're having many staycations every other weekend or so. And they enjoy being with each other all day long, and it's not a burden. So if that's not something that you want, this is not the video for you. But if that's something that you're craving and you desire it and you believe that it's possible, but you just don't know how to get there, then this is the video for you. So stay tuned. So I want to bring something to your guys' attention in the Bible. I want to say about 8 months ago, I was reading Matthew chapter 4, and I decided, let me go into the Strong's Concordance to look up some of these words, because sometimes the English language, like I mentioned before, doesn't quite capture its meaning. And so I was reading Matthew chapter 4, verse 1. Y'all could turn there, or you can read it later. And I'm reading from the NLT, but I do recommend that you read the Bible in multiple versions. So I'm going to read from the NLT, and it says, in verse 1, Matthew chapter 4, verse 1, then Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted there by the devil. Now that right there, I could spend an hour teaching on that alone, even in the context of marriage. But for the sake of this video, we're going to just get right to it. If you're familiar with the Strong's Concordance, I want you to look up the word wilderness. If you're not familiar with the Strong's Concordance, I recommend that you download the Blue Letter Bible app and you look up the word wilderness in the Greek, and you'll find that the word is eremos, which means a dry, desolate place, which is of course a wilderness. But if you continue to scroll on down, you will see that there's a metaphor for eremos, and that is a woman who has been neglected by her husband, a husband who withholds himself from his wife. Now, I want you to think about what a wilderness is, and I want you to think about its ecosystem. It's dry, right? Arid. It's hot, right? And then in the daytime, and then there's a swing towards it being cold in the nighttime, so it can be volatile, right? Whatever you experience during the day, you're not going to experience it at night by leaps and bounds, right? And that can cause a lot of discomfort. People complain in the wilderness. There's needs that are unmet in the wilderness. So if you are a husband and you feel like your wife is dry, figuratively, literally, right? If you are a husband and you're in a marriage where you have a lot of needs that are not being met, even though you feel like you're meeting your wife's needs, then yeah, your marriage is probably in the wilderness. But it doesn't have to be there, because the hint here is that it's a husband who withholds himself from his wife. How would you know if you're withholding yourself from your wife? You cannot be the one to ask yourself if you're withholding yourself from your wife. If I could get just a penny from every husband that I've ever spoken to that said that he was doing right by his wife, and his interpretation of him doing right by his wife, and then I met with his wife and found out that he wasn't, and it wasn't that she was being unfair or unreasonable, and we really dug in, I would be rich right now. I'll be Powerball rich right now. Okay? Because a lot of times men are making the mistake of interpreting his efforts as meeting her needs, and he is the one who is judging. He is the judge, the jury, right? On whether or not he has done what she asked him to do. And he hasn't, and he doesn't have a healthy practice around doing so. And I'll give you a quick analogy. If your wife, and let me just say this goes both ways. This is not just husbands for wives. Wives, if you're listening and you feel like your needs are not being met, right? The reason why I'm addressing husbands is because of the way that the Greek word illustrated what a wilderness was. Okay, so just to be clear. But truth be told, husbands also feel like their needs are not being met, right? Husbands are also hot and cold, or checking in and out due to misplaced trust in terms of emotional connection. So take it as you need. So back to the analogy. If your spouse says that their back is itching and you go to scratch their back, what do you normally do? You check in if you scratch their itch. What we don't do is arbitrarily scratch and walk away and have the assumption that the mission was accomplished. We check in. And oftentimes you'll find when you go to scratch your partner's back that they'll tell you, no, 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 to the left, up a little bit more, down, down, right there, yeah, yeah, right there, right? They'll give you, they'll give you clues and they'll explain to you, and it's a little bit of a song and dance. But sometimes people get frustrated when their spouse is explaining to them how they want their need met, and so they expend energy. They're doing actions, but they're not scratching the itch. Does that make sense? Let me know in the comments if you guys are picking up what I'm putting down. So understand this. Biblically speaking, masculine silence for a wife can feel like neglect. This means bills can be paid, children can be washed, food on the table, vacations booked, right? All of the things. And your wife can still feel neglected because of your silence. Your wife can still feel neglected because the communication between you guys are not aligned, right? Now, as I read this months ago, I thought to myself, what would the alternative of this be? And instantly my mind thought of a rainforest. I'm not saying that a rainforest is like the exact opposite of the wilderness, but a rainforest can be a little bit more consistent, can be a little bit more consistent in its environment, pardon me, in its environment, meaning that a rainforest, that humid weather causes it to rain over and over again, right? And that makes it pretty predictable that it's probably going to rain, right? It makes the environment lush. I want you to imagine, visualize with me a rainforest, right? There's lush, vibrant, trees and foliage all over the place, right? It's damp, it's wet, right? It's hot, it's heated, it's humid, right? So think of how many husbands want their wives to resemble a rainforest more than the wilderness, right? The consistency, the it's wet, right? Without TMI, just if we're adults and y'all are married, right? You know what I'm talking about, right? You use your own imagination. The living waters are there, okay? To keep it biblical, to keep it Christ-like, right? The living waters are there. How many husbands want that and you're not sure how to get there? Well, let me explain to you how you get and stay in the wilderness. One of the ways that you stay in the wilderness is by being in a state of stress. What does a state of stress look like? You're in survival mode, you're in self-preservation mode, you're in me mode, you're upset, or you're hyper focused on achieving your goals, which you're wearing your stress, but you think that you're not. So your wife can sense that there's tension. She can sense that you're frustrated, you're upset, or you're depressed, or something is wrong, but you're not being proactive about working on your mood. You're not being proactive about working on keeping stress for work and coming home with a sense of calm and peace, right? Your wife cannot be your peace for you. Another way that men get and stay in the wilderness is by making grand gestures. I remember I talked to this gentleman one time, and he told me that he took his wife on this big trip, and he was so happy. It cost a lot of money. And when he, asked his wife about their trip, she was just like, I appreciate it, but, you don't really even give me flowers and cards throughout the week. And he was just like, what? Flowers and cards? That's what you want? So that's another way that men stay in the wilderness. You're doing these big heroic measures for your marriage instead of incremental touches. So what would be the alternative? The alternative would be similar to the ecosystem of a rainforest in that it's cyclical. There's a rhythm. When you have a rhythmic marriage, rhythmic check-ins, then you keep a rainforest atmosphere in your wife, in her mind, in her heart, in her body, right? You're wooing her, right? I know it may seem like a lot, but that is how women are made. And to point that out, let's go to 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 7. Let me go there real quick. I want you guys to read that too. And these are some things to study and to like really think about and pray to God about this, right? An easy prayer is like, Father, I thank you for the wife that you gave to me, and I thank you for everything that you've given me to steward. The first job that you ever gave Adam was for him to manage the Garden of Eden. And I'm realizing that my wife, more than anything, is like a garden, and so am I, right? We came from the land, we came from the earth. That is what we're made of. And I want to tend to the garden that you've given me in my wife and in your word. In 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 7, Lord, you say, in the same way, or Paul says, in the same way, you husbands must give honor to your wives. Treat your wife with understanding as you live together. She may be weaker than you are, but she is, let me get there, your equal partner in God's gift of new life. Treat her as you should, so your prayers will not be hindered. Lord, I've been treating my wife according to my knowledge and my logic as a man. I've been treating her this way because I haven't really learned how to do it otherwise. So I thank you, Father, for giving me divine revelation on how to get my wife how to get my marriage out of the wilderness, how to keep my wife from feeling like she's in the wilderness and into something more of like a rainforest or more like a lush garden, however you want to say it, so that you can understand what that looks like. And also, your wife will likely tell you too, but it's also wonderful to, pray to God about that. So, how to make it like a rainforest? You want to keep it rhythmic. You want to do several check-ins. Yes, you want to do the great big things. Those are nice too. But those daily check-ins in the ways that she likes it helps. So you have to kind of ask her to song and dance. What are the itches in the relationship? What are the things that are pestering her? I want you to think about an itch that you can't reach on your back. It becomes like a nuisance. What are some of those nuisances or the things that are like eyesores in the marriage that is bothering your wife that you want to attend to for the sake of peace, that you want to create a peaceful environment? And if you're wondering if you deserve the same thing, the answer is yes. You too deserve for your wife to do those check-ins, but leaders go first. It's really great to model what you expect in your marriage, right? And you want to inspect what you expect. If you expect your wife to be happy, satisfied, and pleased, then you have to inspect that. And there's no greater way to do that than to survey, right? Get a survey. Ask your wife how she's feeling about the marriage and think about one thing that you can move the needle on in your marriage. So that's what I want you to do. I want you to ask your wife. That's the homework. Wife, tell me one thing that I can do better this week that will help you to feel loved. You want to put that into practice, right? So if you need more tips and tools, definitely subscribe, share this video out to your people. And if you would like for me to evaluate your communication, I'm going to be doing a communication audit for 2 people that qualify so I can evaluate your communication skills to see how you would naturally get through difficult challenges in a way that is healthy without arguing, without compromising. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. Let me know your comments and thoughts down below, and I'll see you guys again next week. All right, God bless. Bye.